Welcome to the Bougie Baldie Podcast with your host, Kellie Rhymes. And now, part 2 of the Bougie Baldie Podcast with guest Johanna Dahlman.
Even in my scarring alopecia clients, the ones, of course, that come to me who want to have their hair and keep their hair, they do see hair growth. Now, so let me just give you an example. There's one lady who I'm thinking about. She has hair growth everywhere except for in the scarring place where it's already scarred. And so she has one spot in the back where it's already scarred, but everywhere else it's growing. And so her nails are growing, everything's growing. And so it's also a wait and see situation when it comes to scarring alopecia, because it's going to look different for each person, right? It's even like a weight loss program. It's going to look different for everybody. The challenges, how the ease of it, the results, all of it, how well we follow, how well we're diligent with it. It's going to look different. And so even with the personal trainer, it still looks different for everybody. And so with my scarring alopecia clients, do they see hair growth? Yes. Do they cover up the areas that have been scarred completely? No. And, the thing is, it's like what's been done has been done. And potentially there will be a new technology. Potentially there will be a new way to get to help these areas. And I do believe that we're getting closer and closer because technology and research is just moving at lightning speed. But currently, in a holistic aspect, in my practice, in the way that I help people, have they seen hair growth? Yes. Have they seen it on the scarring aspects? Not completely full. No. So there's 2 points to this. And I would say with any type of hair loss, you want to get to it as soon as possible. You don't want to let it linger. And so I've actually come across women who it's been 20, 30, 40 years. And maybe because part of this is because 20 years ago, there was no one like you and I helping other people. There was no functional medicine. There was no, comprehensive testing. There was no tools and techniques that's available now today. And so this is part of it. And for many people, they've already given up, let's say 10, 15 years ago. And what I would say is that if you still have that deep burning desire, look into it because it's never too late. And I've seen it with autoimmune. I've seen it with 𝐬𝐿ogen effluvium. I've seen it with diffuse. I've seen it with long COVID. I've seen it with different types. And even for ladies with scarring alopecia, personally, if I had that diagnosis, I wouldn't give up on myself. I mean, I didn't give up on myself with the autoimmune because to me, having the health, having the hair is so important for me. It's I don't know. It's a choice. It's all a choice. Just like pregnancy, fertility, whether you do IVF or not, whether you adopt or not, there's many avenues to being a parent. Even if you're just, volunteering at the, Boys and Girls Club or something. There's many ways to give back and give love and, support children or support foster care or whatever route you choose. And so I think in many ways, it's what feels best to you and how you want to go about doing it. But definitely medications is not the route.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead. We're going to switch gears just a little bit and we're going to talk about community. So how has Alopecia Angel fostered a sense of community among women dealing with hair loss? And what role I shouldn't just say women because you work with everybody. So let me take that back. How does it help everyone with hair loss? And what role does it play with the emotional support side of things?
Well, many times when we do our coaching calls, they're just like this in a Zoom, and I have it laid out by different time zones. So let's say everybody in Europe gets to speak with people from Canada or the US, and people in Australia also get to speak with Canada and the US. And so it just all depends where you're at. I've had clients in Russia and India and all different places. And so that's one way we get to connect because we're all going through hair loss of some sort, whether it's scarring, autoimmune, or postpartum or something else. And so I like to, do the coaching calls, and then I allow others to chime in and to give their feedback or to give their suggestions or advice to these people, or to even acknowledge. And sometimes, it's almost like when you hear it from a parent, it doesn't fall so well, but maybe when you hear it from a sister or an aunt, it just sits a little bit better. And so
Right.
in this community, you get to have that opportunity to listen and to understand that everyone's root causes are going to look so different. And this is first and foremost because we all think that our hair loss is because of one thing. And that's a huge myth. It's never one thing. Never. It never is. And so to think that just one diet is going to, bring everything back. No, that's just like saying weight loss. Let's just do one diet and we're good.
Right.
True. That's not true. If this was true, we wouldn't see the obesity epidemic that we have in the US. It's not just one diet. There's so many more factors that go into it. And just with hair growth, there's many factors too that go into it. And so we create community by having this collective international community. And I've lived in 5 different countries, 5 different states. I've also visited to over 60 countries. And so normally when I work with people, I've been to their country and I can tell them exactly which stores to go to for XYZ.
Okay.
I tell them exactly, go here to the corner there. I know exactly where. And so, for example, I have a lot of people from the Netherlands and from Germany who come to my program, and it's because they relate. Living in the Netherlands, you would just cross over to Germany in an hour. And so just like you would cross over from, let's say, maybe one state to one state if you live in the East Coast, or maybe from a county to another county. And so it's very different in Europe, that mindset and how they live and what their approach is. And so even without them saying it, I already know where their hesitancy is and where their mind is at. And so this is a beautiful way for me to also help them because I understand that healthcare system, and going back to that universal healthcare system that I had to live through in the Netherlands or in Japan, it's bargain budget. It's your Walmart standard of care, and that can be okay for some things. But then when you want a second opinion, or when you want a third opinion, or when you want to see a doctor, you may not be able to. And your first primary doctor is kind of your gatekeeper to see what more is possible for you. You can't just demand it. And so this is part of the situation, is that if you have a bulldog gatekeeper, you're not going to get very far. And this is very unfortunate, very, very unfortunate, because as someone who's been through a situation such as the autoimmune alopecia, I was always very proactive, getting my annual pap smear, getting my annual blood work done. But even more so now, I'm much more proactive. And this proactive mindset doesn't exist abroad. They are a reactive mindset, because it's almost like we don't want to test out of nothing and then have insurance cover it. And so, of course, they're thinking always about the budget. And at the same token, though, they don't want to make sure that everything's okay. And so they want to wait for you to have an illness, or for you to essentially be lying on the floor lifeless, for them to do something about it. That's their approach. And so, I can give you a quick synopsis. When I was 40, having my first baby abroad, I never saw a doctor. Not because I didn't want to, but because I was not allowed to. I could only see a doctor if I had twins. And I had...
So no prenatal care, no, nothing. Ultrasounds, nothing. To make sure the baby's healthy, breathing, all of those things.
They told me that a prenatal pill was optional. They said that I didn't need to do it. I had 2 ultrasounds and 1 urine test, and that was it for all the testing.
Okay. Interesting.
Well, I felt like I was in the 1500s because it was just so backwards. And, I had friends, of course, at the time having lots of babies, and some women were in labor for 3 days, 6 days. So they don't believe in C-section, right? It's not an option. You're doing this the natural route. So it was and so it was this type of thing where I left it to my own research and data collection to understand, how can I expedite my pregnancy? How can I expedite and have a healthy labor without too much intervention? And so I tried to do all the things to ensure that I wasn't going to be stranded like a donkey on the side of the road, for 3 and 6 days trying to, you know, have my baby. So
Right.
thankfully my first baby, came out in 13 and a half hours, 14 hours, and we
Okay.
were good to go. And it was all natural at home. But again,
Mm.
it's COVID. And so there was a different climate, different restrictions. And I can go on and on about stories about the differences between healthcare here and there. And it is what it is. And it's not about complaining or even like looking back. It's about how can we mitigate it? How can we do better? Even if we're in a situation where the odds are against us, even if we're in a situation where the healthcare is shot and let's say there's no help. Like, how can I empower myself to take the right action and do better for me and for my family? In this case, for me with my hair. But
Right.
in essence, if I do better for me, I become a better mother, a better wife, a better friend, a better daughter, granddaughter, community member, everything. My mental, emotional, physical health is through the roof. I'm good. I'm so much better to help others. And so this is kind of where it stemmed from. And this even that experience of having a pregnancy abroad really showed me that it's always about advocating for yourself, taking matters into your own hand and not giving your power away because, just like, hey, I'm pregnant, where's the doctor? They're like, sorry, no doctor's here. And I'm like, oh, you know what I mean? So what do you do?
Right.
I need a plan B. I need a plan C, a plan D.
Yeah. Well, okay. So you shared a few stories about, some of your clients you've worked with. But can you tell us about one success story that really, really stands out in regards to the work that Alopecia Angel does? And can you just share that with the audience?
Sure. Is there any type of hair loss that you'd like for me to touch upon?
No, just anyone that stands out to you.
Sure. There's so many. There really is. What I love to see is that they're all so different. All of my clients are so different. I've had, as I mentioned, women who have either gone through cancer, let's say had their thyroid ablated because of cancer, have gone through breast cancer, and then a year or two later go through alopecia areata. They come to me and they get full healing. But then they also, as I said, understand their blind spots because just like cancer, alopecia doesn't come out of nowhere. It came from somewhere. So if we put on our detective hat and we start looking further, we get to see what's happening because if we ignore it, we become an ostrich, we're just going to continue to have a prevalence of some sort of situation that's not in our favor sooner or later. And so I've had clients, children, who do my program with their parents and they see healing and they do it so quickly. You can see hair growth in just a couple of weeks. And many times we're thinking, well, Google says it takes 3 months and my dermatologist says it takes 4 months. Like, how is it that these people are seeing, hair growth in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? And the thing is, it's that Google and dermatology are looking at hair growth as if it was a grass, where all the grass is manicured and cut at the same time. But when you have autoimmune alopecia, it's patchy. It's all different patches. And so it's going to have a different pattern of hair growth and it's going to have a different format of how it comes back completely. And so, for example, if you have alopecia universalis or totalis, which is complete baldness, the only distinction between them both is that universalis is complete hair loss on the body. So no nostril hair, no upper lip hair, no armpit, legs, private areas, nothing. There's nothing there. So what happens is that this hair gets to decide when it comes back. So my alopecia universalis clients, they get to see some arm hair, armpit hair, some leg hair, some scalp hair, all eyebrows, eyelashes, all come back almost at different times and almost erratically because this is how the body is healing. It's healing and it chooses where the hair comes back. Totalis, you have complete baldness and it comes back primarily, of course, on the head, and it's going to come back in patches, just like universalis. It'll all come back in patches, and then it'll fill in because eventually it graduates to areata, and then you have the full head of hair. And so there's a lot of misnomers about hair loss. There's a lot of myths, thinking that it's about age, thinking it's about, the correlation between XYZ. And sometimes you don't even need to have a correlation. Just like for breast cancer, you don't necessarily have to have the BRCA gene. You can just be you without any genetic disposition and still get it. And so this is the
Right.
same situation with alopecia. You could have zero genetics dictating this in your family, and yet you can still get it, because that was my case.
Mm.
And so really, once we hone in into our diet and lifestyle, take responsibility for all these things, work through them, this is where we see the results. But when it comes to hair loss, I've seen so many transformations. As a parent, you and I were parents, and so imagine having your children go through hair loss, and it's heartbreaking to see the
Yeah.
parents cry to me. It's heartbreaking to see the angst in their eyes, even though I know that their child is going to heal. It's not a matter of if, it's about when. Because when you A, don't give up, and when you B, just remain consistent,
Mm-hmm.
see the results, just like with weight loss, just like with education. We have education spread out over 18 plus years, but it's because you can't consume it all in one sitting. We need all these years of education to get us to where we need to get to.
Right, right. Okay. Well, you mentioned your podcast a couple times. So let's dive into your podcast, because I want to make sure the people in the audience can go check it out. And you mentioned a little bit earlier about stress. And I listened to one of your episodes where you were talking about the I think it was 5 jobs that are the most stressful jobs or cause hair loss or something along those
Yeah.
lines. And it was like healthcare workers, transportation, caregivers, and I forgot the other ones. So talk about your podcast, which is called Alopecia Angels Awaken to Hair Growth. Tell everybody the concept of it, where they can find you and go listen to your podcast and all of the things.
So this podcast has over 200 episodes. It's the longest running hair loss podcast out there. You can find it everywhere, from Amazon to Spotify to Apple, anywhere you find a podcast. Plus on our YouTube, you will find it there too. What I love about the podcast is that I bring a lot of my clients to the show so that they can tell their story of hair loss and hair growth with the Alopecia Angel program. And so this way you're hearing it from the horse's mouth. You're not, having a mediator, filter out anything. You hear it directly from them. They get to showcase how many years and decades that they've been going through this. I have one client in particular. She's alopecia universalis for over 15, 17 years or 20 years. Her grandmother was the head chief of the medical hospitals in the province of Alberta, Canada. And so she had kind of like that fast pass to see all the doctors and to touch and talk to everybody with expedited, even within the healthcare system. It's like, it's who it's like networking, who to get to the front of the line.
Right.
She was able to get to the front of the line since she was like 9 years old, but none of these things worked. And if they did work, because she did try the medications, if they did work, it would take 6, 8, 9 months to work and to kick in. And then from there, she had bad side effects. And so she stopped. She got married. She had her kids. She did my program. And in 5 months, she was already like covered. Now,
wow.
Problem is that sometimes people have setbacks. And so she fell off the wagon and now she's back on. So it's sometimes, just like anything, holidays come around and we're like, oh, what diet? Like, let's go ahead and eat and drink and do all the things. And so it's just like anything, it requires consistency. And the beauty of it is that you hear and see, especially if you're watching on YouTube, you hear and see people of all different races, nationalities, and ethnicities, people who live in faraway lands, and you hear the same thing. They've gone to a gazillion doctors. They've tried everything. A lot of them say that I'm their last hope. And thank God they're seeing results, and thank God I'm helping them, because I know that their healthcare system is not doing what needs to be done, just like mine didn't, whether it was here or there or anywhere else. Like, it wouldn't have taken me as far. But once you take control, once you have the answers, once you have functional medicine testing and support, of course, because whether you're a client from today or from 3 years ago or 8 years ago, I still answer your email as if like we've been seeing each other, within the last week. And so
Okay.
I'm happy to respond to emails to give you added support, and you get lifetime access to the program with all of this. So let's say if it's not just you, I have a lot of times parents who have alopecia and their kids too. So
Okay.
so then, or even they do the program for their kid, but their kid's 5 years old. But what happens when the kid is 15, 25, 35? They're going to want access so that they can understand and know what needs to happen along these lines, because life is like this, right? It gives you curveballs. It's always up and down, and it's always helping us learn what we need to learn. But at the same time, if we can fast track results and understanding, then this is the way that it needs to be. This is why, education is so important in this, but it's not going to be readily available. And so at least, Google doesn't have the answers, ChatGPT doesn't have the answers, but there are people like myself who are there to help you. And so that podcast showcases research, it showcases things that you should know, things about my path, what I wish other people would know. Of course, client interviews and success stories, but it has a lot of information. And of course, it also showcases things that are happening right now in the alopecia world, because it's never just one side, it's never just one thing. And even with superstars such as Jada Pinkett Smith, she came out with a picture the other day with full hair growth. And so I always like to update people, on what's happening, because we put a spotlight on people with alopecia, but we also forget to showcase the people who've healed. And so I want to showcase people who've chosen that path and recognize them. And I know sometimes they're shy. I know sometimes they're a little embarrassed or bashful, or like they want to hide. They don't want people to know. I was one of those people. I didn't want anyone to know I went through this. But then I realized that people need to hear these stories. Then I spotlight my clients who are open to that. And because that makes a world of a difference. Because when you think, oh, this person did it. Oh, well, that's Tom Brady. He can do anything. And so we put this excuse in our head, like, I can't do it because I'm not him, or I can't do it because I'm not her. But when you start seeing that kids, teens, people who live in dormitories, who live on a cruise ship, who live in hotels, who travel for a living, who do this, who do that, and you start to see anyone can do this, then that gives you confidence to say, anyone can do this, and so can I.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned like with your program, people can have setbacks. You have to stay consistent. And so that made me think about, like, whether you're doing the medication, you can have, if you stop taking the medication, a lot of times your hair just comes right back out. I've heard that so many times. So when you talk about setbacks with the holistic side of things, what does that setback look like? Does it look like your hair just starts shedding again, or does it start falling out again, or what does a setback look like?
Well, it could be where it starts to shed again, depending on what type of alopecia you started with, right? And you'll notice it. Everyone notices this in the shower, especially when you brush your hair. You can gauge it. And so you can also gauge how you're feeling. Like if we were to do a quick body scan, close our eyes and just scan our body, you may or may not feel pain somewhere, maybe some fatigue somewhere. But once you are in tune with your body, you know exactly what's happening. And so for a lot of people, especially with autoimmune, there are some allergies here and there that come up. So for example, I was eating some nut butter the other day, and this nut butter, I ate it twice in 2 days. And all of a sudden I saw like this patch, like dry patches on my skin. And I was like, what is this? And I tried to slough it off with some scrub or something or other. And then when I realized it was the nut butter. You just take it out. Now, this is me still discovering how new foods or new things or new products, I should say, affect me and my body. And so this could be a certain situation where you go traveling, you think you're eating something healthy for you, and then maybe it just backfires, or maybe, something changes. And the thing is, this is just it. The one constant is change, right? In life, in our health, and everything. And so only we can choose to move the needle towards health. And so this is where, when oh, you know what, this has been a stressful period. Oh, you know what, this has been, a bad 6 months, or not so healthy last 3 weeks, or maybe I just derailed myself. but you'll see those side effects. For some people, it's maybe a little more eczema, acne, maybe some hair loss, weight gain. Like these are all signs that we're out of alignment. Does that make sense? And so when
Yes,
you're
that
out
makes
of alignment, it shows up differently for each person. Maybe it's like a little more love handles or a little more something else, right? But your body tells you when it's not feeling well. And you know it. You're just trying to muscle through it though. We've all been there. We've all
Yeah,
muscled through something that we don't
definitely.
want to. Give me some extra caffeine shots or whatever it is. Let's just zoom
And
on
keep
in.
it moving.
The thing is, it's like our bodies are just that. They're our bodies, and there's only so much they can take. And so
Right.
depending on each person and what levels you're already at, this can, not be the optimal way to progress in life, just muscling through it. And so at some point you need to scale back and say, okay, how can I support my body better? And really that's the name of the game. How can we support our body in a way that's in alignment, that's the best for us? And maybe that's also creating boundaries, and maybe that's also creating new rituals and new non-negotiables. Because I got to tell you, like now, I do have non-negotiables. I do have new rituals. I do have a new way of living. And not to say that the way I was living before was bad. I was never, heavy, never a heavy drinker, just only socially. I never smoked. I always worked out, but even working out could be too much. Even a marathon could be too much for some people. This is why you have wear and tear in joints and knees. Athletes feel this. And so at what point do we say stop? At what point do we say, let's lessen this a little bit? Right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So tell us, what do you have coming up next? Like, do you have any exciting projects or any initiatives going on with Alopecia Angel that you want to tell the audience about?
A couple of things coming up. I have a free training, which is accessible on my website at alopecia-angel.com. I also have a book that I am revamping, rewriting, and I had an ebook. That was the first thing I did. The thing is, I never went into this thinking I was going to create a business out of it. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to write an ebook, throw it on Amazon, and just like let people help. But then what happens? Then they start emailing you. They're like, I need your help. Coach me,
Right.
do this, do that. And I'm like, okay, let's do this. So it snowballed into what it is today. So I'm writing this book. It should be out as soon as possible. And
Okay.
the free training is there. And I would also say that in the back of my mind, I have lots of ideas percolating. I have ideas for a conference that I'd like to do. There's people that I'd love to, have as speakers, and I'd love to do an Alopecia Angel conference where it would be educational for parents, educational for adults, but then also have a beautiful subset for children as well. This is just an idea. Literally, it popped in my head today. So,
Okay.
and today's like November 6th. So
And that's where it starts. Hey, it's an idea.
it's just an idea. And I just started like chewing on this ever so slightly. And I think this would be so much needed, given the climate, given the community aspect that's needed, and also uncovering that misinformation. Because a lot of times, just like me, I went to the doctor, I Googled, I did the internet search in the beginning, and that initial shock of being told, hey, there's no cure, there's no this, there's no options, there's nothing. It's just take the medications or leave it. Wrong. That's a lie. It's an absolute lie. And I want to, decipher and really dissect this, because people have more options and they don't know it. And so how many parents were out there thinking like my kid is bald for life and there's no option? How many parents are out there trying to force their kid to take JAK inhibitors, which later on in life is going to hinder their health in another way, in another format?
Right.
And so this is what I'm trying to, I guess, save the population from doing, is don't make the mistakes that potentially you're making already, but there's always time. There's always time to heal naturally. Your body wants to heal. It's just about being supported. And so I think the education piece is huge. And I also think the community aspect would be big. I'd love to take this global because I already have the clientele globally. So let's just do it globally. And then also the reach and the access. You know how important it is? I feel sometimes as Americans, we have so much information. There's just so much information. But then when you go abroad and you're an expat, like I was for over 9, 10 years, the lack of information for you and what's available to you looks a lot different. And even
Yeah.
though we all have the same internet, but there's a lot of barriers to websites. There's a lot of barriers to getting and grasping that knowledge. So even let's say when you have an address, let's say an internet ISP address from abroad, you can't access certain websites in the US. It's just not available to you. And so
Right.
this is what I'm talking about. You know, sometimes people think, oh, everyone has internet. Yeah, but no, it's not available. Or maybe because the country restricts it. That's another
Yeah.
thing. You know, there's country restrictions where they're like, nope, you can't have access to Facebook. Like I was in Kenya, there was no access to Facebook. There was no access to social media. And people just sometimes they don't understand that. But having lived abroad, this is a big deal. And so when you bring information, education, and of course all the case studies, like it's a proven method. So
Yeah.
you have a choice. You can heal this way, truly, from the inside out, or you can, you know, play whack-a-mole with the medications and see how that goes. But you're
Yeah.
rolling the dice.
Yeah, I mean, I lived in China, so I definitely understand the restrictions of what you can access online. Now I'm in Colombia and everything works off of WhatsApp. Like there are a ton of businesses here, but they don't necessarily have a website. You got a WhatsApp,
¿Hablas
you got to
español?
figure out. Huh?
¿Hablas español?
Yeah. Oh, you see, my español es poquito.
What part of Colombia are you in? I was just there.
I'm in Medellin, Colombia.
Medellin. Okay.
Yes, yes. And we haven't been here that long. We've been here 4 months now, and I'm still learning. I'm on the struggle bus with Spanish. I'm trying.
I like Medellin. It's a beautiful, beautiful city.
It is. I love it here. I love it here. So we are now in our Spanish classes, and I need them, as you can see.
No wonder you're wearing like this summery dress. I was
Oh,
like,
yes. It's
where is
wonderful.
she? She must be in Florida.
Nope, I'm in the place of eternal spring, and I
Yes,
love
you
it.
are. Yes, you are. That's amazing. Good for you. How are your
Thank
kids
you.
loving it?
They are loving it. They're adjusting to the school. The school is totally different than what we're used to. So we're all adjusting. I'm not just going to say they are. So we're all adjusting to how the school system works, but they love it. They're like, we don't have to go back.
Wow.
So we're good. We're good. Now, my last question, or I should just, not really a question, but you have a wealth of knowledge and you've shared that with us today. What advice would you give someone out there who's struggling with hair loss? Let's just say, you know, they just don't know what to do. They may be in a place where they're just stuck. What advice would you give them?
So there's a couple of reasons to being stuck. I actually have a lot of podcast episodes about this. Being stuck, if you're working with somebody, it's probably because they can't help you. I mention this a lot. Everybody in healthcare wants to help you, but not everyone can. Maybe because of lack of expertise, lack of knowledge, or lack of access, or even access to correct testing, or even next steps. And so this is part of the problem. And this is why we have this runaround. And it doesn't matter whether it's hair loss or cancer, ALS, diabetes, like you always get this runaround. You never get the straight answers for some reason, right? And so this is part of the situation is that more than likely you shouldn't be working with who you're working. And so if it's been more than 6 months working with somebody, whatever their designation is, and you're not seeing results, move on. You know, and in many ways it's like dating. Like, would you stay in a relationship where it's not going anywhere? No, you wouldn't. You would move on. And so it's that same type of thing where you just move on until you find somebody who has results. And this is why I showcase so much results on the podcast in pictures, because this is the only way for people to trust and believe and to know that there's true hope. Because I never got that anywhere with any practitioner. So I would say if you're stuck, evaluate what you're currently doing, who you're seeing, and potentially you're in a situation where there's a lot of misinformation. Potentially the knowledge that you have or that you've been given is incorrect, and that is also holding you back. I would say, come talk to me. I have consultations that I offer all year long. So you can always reach out, AlopeciaAngel.com. You can book the consultation directly on the website. And this is available to you worldwide. It doesn't matter where you live, I can help you. And so this is also the beauty of what I do, because there's no restrictions. And to me, it's about helping people. It's not about, jurisdictions and what I can and cannot do. So
Okay.
I would say those are the two main things. And I'd say educate yourself as much as possible and be weary of forums, be weary of people and their situations, because everyone's situation is so different. So even if you're trying to find somebody who's your same age, your same, hair type, your same, I don't know, diet and lifestyle, it's never going to be the same. Our genetics are different, where we live is different. And even then,
Right.
so for example, I can't, it's hard to explain, but when I was living in the Netherlands, I didn't have access to many things because they don't offer it. The Amazon was like very subpar, and it was just very hard to get these things on. I mean, beyond the language barriers. In
Right.
Japan, working with Amazon was also different. And, trying to navigate the whole country was also very different. It took me like 6 months to figure out the organic stores. And so it is what it is versus
Right.
being in the US where I know it, it's my home, and it's a different ball game. And so
Yeah.
I would say, a lot of times you don't have to struggle and go through this yourself and try to figure this out all on your own. This is why there's people like me who can help you get there faster. And so it's really about, how long do you want this to take? Do you want this to take another 10, 15, 16 years or more? Or do you want to fast track your results and work with somebody? And as you mentioned, yes, it's holistic. Yes, it's out of pocket, but it's priceless.
Right. Exactly.
Priceless.
All right. Well, and everyone, I will have the links in the description of the podcast. So if you did not catch those links, they will be in the description. So make sure you check that out. I love doing the podcast just because I love to learn and from other people. I know I don't have all the knowledge. I don't have it at all. So when I get an opportunity to talk to other people with the knowledge, it's like, whew, this is nice. I enjoy it. And
I
it
do
gets me
too.
excited.
I do too, Kellie. And I love your contagious smile. It's so beautiful. You glow.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So we are going to go ahead and we're going to start wrapping up this episode of the Bougie Baldie Podcast. But before we do that, I want to make sure I remind you guys that we have the Bougie Baldie Show. The TV show is on streaming TV. And if you have Apple, Roku, or Apple TV, you can download the 𝐬𝐿𝐵 TV app and go and find the Bougie Baldie Show. We have a panel on there of consisting myself. I'm the host and a part of the panel, but we have a panel of women who have hair loss, different forms of hair loss, that have just decided to shave their hair off. And they are sharing their stories, real experiences, providing advice. We also have someone who chose to cut her hair off due to medical reasons, and she has created a whole business around that. So I want you guys to make sure you go check that out, because this is a really, really good show. I really believe it's beneficial and educational for women out there who are experiencing hair loss. No, we're not advocating that you shave your hair off, but we are giving you real stories so that you can relate to, you have people out there who have been through the same thing you have been through, and you're not alone. So make sure you go check that out. And if you want to become a sponsor of the show, if you have a business related to hair in any form or fashion, if you have hair, if you are connected to hair loss, hair restoration, any of those types of things, hair care products, and you want to be a sponsor, you can reach out to me. I will put the link for my calendar for us to link up and have a chit chat to see if you would be a good fit to be a sponsor on the show. All right. So thank you guys so much for tuning into the Bougie Baldie Podcast. Thank you, Joanna, for sharing your knowledge with everyone. And you guys make sure you go check out her podcast as well and her website, so that you can get this good information and potentially work with her if you're in need of her help. All right. So that's all we have for you guys, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening and watching the Bougie Baldie Podcast. I appreciate you as an audience member. Now, make sure you go and check out the Bougie Baldie TV show. You can watch it from any device, any smart device. All you have to do is go to 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐜.com and you will be able to pull up my show. It is under the lifestyle section on the menu if you don't see it on the front page. So make sure you go check it out. And if you did not get it, it's 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐜.com. Go ahead and click on the link in my show notes if you want to make it easier for yourself, and it'll take you directly there. I will speak to you on the next episode of the Bougie Baldie Podcast. Bye.
Thank you for watching the Bougie Baldie Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe